better. So, what you're going to learn over the next few moments are the 7 deadly mistakes that quietly kill programs and how you recognize them early. And my goal, if you're doing housing right now, that you know how to fix them before it's too late. So let's go ahead and jump into the first one. The first one, and by the way, they're not in any particular order, not one is greater than the other, but they all lead to that silent failure that you can experience. And the first one we have listed here is vision without structure. I say all the time that this is where your program actually begins. It begins with your vision. And I know that many of you come in with vision, you come in with passion, but guess what? You don't have systems in place. You don't have structure. So you end up making decisions based off of your emotions, how you feel, what you think, without making sure your structure is in place. That's why I work diligently to make sure that those of you who are working with us, that you understand what you must do to have your stuff in place. I'd rather have you have too much than not enough, because many times that's how we operate. And many times we allow those policies to shift depending on the situation. And then you've got staff that's not supporting you, and staff that, because they don't understand what the standards are. So without structure, you will fail. And when you think about that and the cost associated with that, your reputations will be damaged when you operate like that. And it shows up, the real cost will show up fast. And when your reputation becomes inconsistent in this type of market, you'll have agencies that will not want to send their clients to you. You will have organizations that won't want to partner with you, and you will burn out from decision fatigue. And I can honestly say, too, that your legal exposure will be increased, because think about it. If you aren't taking the necessary structure in place to have protocols that you follow, you're following just based off of a response. And next thing you know, you understand we're in a litigious world. People will sue or try to come for you, all because you didn't have things in place. And so my goal is to help make sure that you have those things in place so you can do that. Because when you're looking at having the way in which you select your participants to be a part of your program, that's critical, as well as making sure that you have specific policies in place, in writing, even electronically. I actually operate more electronically than anywhere else, but those type of things help you get to a point where you can catch that, and being able to back what your protocols, your decisions are based off of your protocols. And a lot of people miss this last one, which is having some form of an emergency response procedure in place. That is worth volumes. And I can speak for experience related to that one. I don't know, many of you who know that we had that tornado that came through St. Louis. We were managing the properties that we used to own. And in that management, because we didn't control it, they didn't have their emergency processes fully in place. And it caused a hiccup in the process. So things like that can truly hurt you. And we want you to be able to not have that mistake happen for you. Another is related to money. Now, this conversation makes people uncomfortable. Many of us who know that we're called to purpose have a tough time discussing this, because we all know we're not in it for the money. We know that money will come from it, but we're not in it for that. But because we're not in it for that, does not mean you should not know how to build out that part of the process and being able to understand what you need coming in to be able to make things work. So many people will get into this, they'll get a property, they'll think about how it's going to go, but they end up operating month to month. And when you operate month to month, not anticipating things that happen in a property with no reserves, things happen. And there are financial responsibilities that show up, those emergencies that you need to account for. And when you don't do that well, that is a problem. and especially as it relates to your finances. If you do not have an understanding of what it costs per participant in your program to make it work well, then you are setting yourself up for failure. And understand this too, your calling doesn't replace stewardship. You must be a good steward for what he gives you as you create this. So, knowing what it looks like upfront in advance related to your model and then the property that you will get, you back into that so you can make sure that those numbers make sense, make sure you got good support. Even when you get into that first property, and there's strategies that you can implement to make sure that that happens. So, that is what you should do because the cost in that is you will be in crisis all the time. You'll be literally in chaos over and over, wondering where the money's going to come from. Also, you will miss funding opportunities. There are some funding sources out there that require, uh, or you might not get paid from those, maybe sometimes 30, 60, 90 days out. How are you going to be able to accommodate that? And if that is the case, you won't be able to get any funding. Also, related to how you are as a person, you will have more burnout from the financial side of it than anything. Many people who've come to me and said they no longer wanted to do it and tried to get me to get in their property, that's pretty much the top reason why they end up leaving, is because they were just simply burnt out. It was too much. They took on too much responsibility in what they were building and ultimately just said, I quit. Deadly mistake number 3 is the boundary crisis. Now, this is where compassion turns into enabling. Now, I can say out of all of these deadly mistakes that we're going to talk about, this is one of the top ones because, especially for those of us who consider ourselves compassionate investors or purpose driven leaders, we do step out of bounds a lot with our residents because you get close to them, you hear their stories, you want to help them, you have compassion for them. But a lot of times when you are in that space, you have to still set boundaries around them. You have to be able to give that tough love and do it in a way where it's not really hard, but you're still showing your heart. And sometimes we get into this space and we do that. We end up either making exceptions or being able to, we over function as a founder on behalf of the residents. Those things happen and we end up doing things that do more harm to us than it does good. I had to, so I'll admit I do have one thing I'll share as a story that still I'm working on. I'm still working on it myself. I told you guys I worked as an operator of 2 homeless shelters, and everyone knew me very well. And there was like 1 or 2 that I was really close to that actually had my personal number. Now they still call me today. It's been several years since we've done it, but they call my number just to give me an update on how they're doing. Now, in cases like that, and that's why I say there's some boundaries, but there's also some grace. And I still love hearing from him on a regular basis because it lets me know that I'm a person that he trusts and he still makes sure that he's in his housing and he's doing well. And those type of things are good, but he does have my personal number. But you want to make sure that if you do that, because I'm not going to tell y'all to do that, but if you do that, make sure that you use some discernment around it because I trust him. And he was almost like my protector when we were at the shelter all the time. He made sure that I was taken care of. So understand that you're not here to serve every problem. You are just simply here to be of support and give them what they need as they step into moving into transition. Now, here, the truth about boundaries, boundaries are not the opposite of compassion. So, you heard me sort of talk about that in the last slide, that we must have boundaries around this, and they're not the opposite. They actually make sustainable compassion possible. So, when you do everything for someone, you rob them of developing their own capacity. So, we want to make sure that we are allowing them to grow and to build. Now, deadly mistake number 4 Wrong people, wrong fit. Oh my goodness. So this mistake, I can say many times, if we don't have processes in place to catch this, we can get caught pretty fast, especially when you have people knocking on your door saying, I need housing, and you feel bad sometimes if you don't, especially if you have availability. So, a lot of providers will end up bringing in someone because they were homeless or life happened to them and they're not quite a good fit for your program, but you took them in anyway. So, when you create those boundaries and when you create those those screening process, your intake process, you must know exactly who you're working with, and do not step outside of that, because that does impact the whole home. And when it's a wrong fit, it can bring chaos and you will regret having done that. So be sure to keep that in play as you're looking at bringing or creating your screening process for individuals for your program. Also, when you hire wrong, you end up hiring somebody who's working for you, but the clarity around their role, it's not there. And you might get an awesome person, but you didn't clearly define what they were supposed to be doing. So being able to not only choose the right people who are going to work with you, but knowing when you're done. So if you because when you have brought somebody in who shouldn't be with you and you realize that, don't wait trying to figure it out. Take action, because when you take action, you stop it immediately and you won't be misaligned if by keeping them longer. Deadly mistake number 5 is related to documentation. Now, documentation, this one here, can potentially get you shut down. And when you don't have the proper documentation or written policies or having gaps in how your compliance is, this is where you can get shut down. I know of a situation where um, I think it was just in the news a few days ago, related to individuals who had documentation that wasn't right. And I'm just going to say, anything you do as you get into this space, please make sure that your documentation is there and your records are consistent, that they're not fraudulent. And I say that because there are several agencies and programs that have shut down all because their records were wrong. And some shut down quietly and some shut down on the news. So I want to keep you out of the news and open. And the best way to do that is to make sure that you've got your documentation together. Deadly mistake number 6 is operating in isolation. Boy, this one's a tough one, because as I go across the country talking to people who are operating, they're operating in silos. So not only are they working in silos, doing their own thing, trying to figure it out by themselves, they're not really even connected to their community. So the importance of connecting and collaborating is so that you can learn and grow from others. And the best way to learn from others is working with a mentor. So many people will not get a mentor or work with peers because they feel like they can figure it out. But trying to figure it out on your by yourself is one of the biggest mistakes. Or choosing to just purchase a course and flow with it. I've purchased billions of dollars, feels like billions, but a lot of money on courses over the years and everything that I specialize in. And the courses still just sit on my computer. They don't happen the way they need to, or you'll read it and you'll be like, well, what was the intention by that? So if you are a person that works on in isolation, I encourage you to come out of that, because out of that, you don't have any accountability. And that is going to then create more problems in your facility. The last deadly mistake that we're going to talk about is that founder as your single point of failure. And this one, I'm sure all of us have experienced where we've run everything. Everything depends on you, and your program is fragile. When you're at that point, and it's usually because you're doing a few things, such as you're not a good delegator, you aren't learning to have a process in place to back up you if you're not there, and you have no succession plan. And without those, you will fail. And I can, especially for this one, many of us think that we're going to live forever or that we're going to be in good health at all times. But guess what? Life happens. And if life happens and everything depends on you, you are the single point of failure in your program, no matter how beautiful it is. So once you've done those things, I want you to consider everything that we talked about today. And I want you to just take inventory of those 7 deadly mistakes that I talked about. And I want you to identify the ones that relate to you. If you don't have any of them that relate to you, I am proud to say I'm happy for what you're able to accomplish. But if there's at least one on this list, then I want to encourage you to take action on it and sit down and figure out a game plan on how you can deal with that. Because when you can look at these items to protect yourself from failing, that is what is most important to me, is that you create a successful program that can flourish even beyond you. So if you can even just identify 3, if you had all 7, which I didn't have anybody raise their hand and tell me which ones you had, but or how many you have, but put them in order and put a plan in place for how you are going to deal with that. All right? Now, you do have a choice. And I want you to know that the program that you're building, my job is to help you figure out how you can move it forward. So, the path forward for you, as I said, after you looked at the areas that you've identified as your gaps, implement something that you can do this week. Don't wait. Just simply write it down so that you can take action on it and stop doing it alone. And that's probably the most important message I can share with you. As you know, I live and breathe this stuff every day. This is what I talk about all the time. And my goal is to create a way in which I can bring you all together, all the people who are in this space working together, because I don't want you doing it alone. And guess what? You don't have to. You don't have to build alone. If you can just identify the gaps that you have and put a plan in place so that you don't make those mistakes, then work with us then in our Skool community. We have a Skool community, tonyschool.com. That's Transitional Housing Maximized. That's what we call our program. And we have other purpose driven leaders who are there with us who want to learn this space, network together, do things together. So, those of you who are on YouTube, you you probably are meeting me for the first time, and that's wonderful. Come join our community. This is what we're here to do, to be able to not only grow this Skool community with people who are like minded, but we also learn how to grow together because we do things in there that matter. And the things that we've been doing and set up for this year, we are set up for success so that you won't be alone and you'll be able to build and grow with other leaders. And as we get on our final note, I want you to just know that your calling is real. Many of you have reached out to me, you've made comments. I hear what your passion is, and I'm excited for you because your vision does matter. But passion alone is not going to sustain you. And vision plus systems is what's going to create that longevity that you need and that legacy. So, as we move forward and we talk about what we need to do next, I want to encourage you to join the community and participate. Don't just join and get quiet. I want you to come and participate because that's what we do in our community. Many of us are coming together and talking every day and fellowshipping and learning from each other. And that's what I look forward to doing with you when you join. So I do want to open the floor to questions. If there were any questions related to what we talked about today, and I'm opening it for because I see no chat, no comments in our YouTube, any comments in our Zoom community. If you have a question, you can raise your hand. And if not, going once, going twice. I'm glad you guys came out today for our masterclass. And I will say, we'll be doing a masterclass every week because we want to bring more people into our community. If you know any other operators or people who desire to be in this space, give them the information on Tuesdays. This is when we all get together to talk about transitional housing and making sure that we do what's necessary for it not to fail. But we also want to promote our Skool community. So they can come here, or you're welcome to have them come join at tonyskool.com. And I thank you so much for your time. You guys have a wonderful night. I am hoarse as hoarse can be. Well, I did it. That's all that matters. I did it.